How's it going, guys? Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Phil Talk Sports Podcast. Today's show is mostly going to be about the Super Bowl being set, the AFC and the NFC Conference Championship games happening last night. After this segment, I'm going to jump to myself, Rob Dieters, and Nick Rice. We're kind of going to give our initial reactions. We recorded just after the game got done, and it's a good time, so definitely stick around for that. But before I get to that, I really wanted to take a couple minutes to share my thoughts on some news that broke that's going to matter to some people, not others, but UCF's athletic director, Danny White, leaving UCF to take the same job at the University of Tennessee, the Volunteers. And I'm glad I waited a couple days to record this because as the stories unfold, my opinion is generally the same, but some things have been tweaked. This is not something that I knew was coming. This was not something that there was a big buildup for. It kind of came out of nowhere unless you were really in the know. And really, the bigger story was what's been happening in Tennessee in the past week and a half to 2 weeks prior to this news about, their coach giving McDonald's bags full of cash to recruits on recruiting trips. Several players have entered the transfer portal at 13 total, I believe, including one going to UCF, actually, a wide receiver, Brandon Johnson, who's the cousin of Bengals great Chad Johnson. Just a quick little note there. But when the news broke that Danny White was going to this really dumpster fire of a situation, I understand it's the SEC. I understand it's more money. Not as much more money as I would have expected. Danny White was making an even $1 million a year at UCF, and he's going to be making 1.8 at Tennessee. So $800,000 more dollars, plenty of money. I'm not trying to act like it's not, but it's not the number I expected. Considering, when you think of the SEC, you think big money. And there's plenty of other incentive-based things that can get them all the way up to, I think, $3 million. So that's more in the ballpark of what I was thinking. First note, it hurts. Everybody at UCF loves Danny White to the point where when Scott Frost left for Nebraska after the undefeated season, after the national championship, a lot of people were like, damn, that sucks. I don't know who we're going to get next, but we still have Danny White, so I think we're going to be okay. And for the most part, aside from this past year, that was more of a down year than we've been expecting the past couple of years. But I was there for 2015, so I'll sit through anything. Everything's going to be better than that 0-12 year. I wasn't really around for the other 0-12 year in 2005 or 6 or whatever it was. But 2015 was enough. I got enough winless seasons in me to last a lifetime after going through there. I was at 4 of the 6 home games in that winless season. So I took my lumps, and, every year is going to be better than that. So I'm not someone that just complains about a down year here and there. But, bringing in Josh Heupel for the most part has worked out. A lot of people aren't happy with him necessarily, but Danny White's hires between all the other sports, men and women's basketball, softball, baseball, all of his coaching hires have been, triples to home runs. I don't think there's really been a dud in a coaching hire when it comes to Danny White. And the other thing that he was really great at was generating revenue through different, avenues that people can donate money and different, the charge on fund and things of that nature that a school with a thriving, growing athletic program really needs. And the funniest thing about him going to Tennessee, in my opinion, is that might be his best asset, his ability to generate money. And the one thing Tennessee doesn't need help in is the generation of money. Being in the SEC, money's not the problem. It's everything else. It's their, they clearly have to hire a new coach. There's been talks that somebody internally in the staff was going to be an interim head coach for this coming year, give them time to really set up, who's going to be the next guy. But Danny White has kind of come in and said, that's not the case. And his coaching search has started right away. And one of the things that turned me from, it's one thing for him to leave. And it's something that in college sports, it's always a carousel. That people are going to move even when you don't expect it. Jimbo Fisher moving from FSU to Texas A&M. Didn't make a whole lot of sense at the time. It seemed like a lateral move at best, something I've said on this podcast. And clearly FSU has gone in the wrong direction, and A&M is as profitable as they've been ever. So good move on Jimbo Fisher in hindsight. If you're a fan of that team or not, if you would have done it prior to. But the main thing about what he said after his press conference there, one, the SEC media always will attempt to immediately try to get him to talk back national championship talks at UCF, something that Scott Frost walked back almost immediately when he got to Nebraska, whereas Danny White stood firm and said, there was more than one national champion that year. That's all he needs to say. I mean, for the most part, that whole situation was generated through him. He definitely kicked that off. And what made it an official thing, I don't think people realize, the claim had happened, and then the Colley Matrix, ranking system awarded the title. So some people think that, we pulled a Michael Scott and we just, I didn't say it, I declared it. There's more to it than that. It's an official selector picking the national champion that year. So it's kind of a two-way street there. But for him to not, walk back on those comments like Scott Frost did, as I said, really shows that I think he does care about UCF in the long run. I don't think this was just a money move. He is someone, he builds kingdoms, this guy. He was great at Buffalo. He was fantastic here at UCF. And the train wreck, the dumpster fire that Tennessee is right now, from that standpoint, and outside of football, I know their basketball teams are pretty decent and things of that nature, but he wants to challenge. He said, if things were great here, I wouldn't be here, which spoke volumes to me that this is a guy that does want to just build up a program, all program, athletic programs in general, not just football. That's going to be the biggest thing right now, of course, is trying to build, and they're probably going to get sanctioned. So no matter who they get in, they're going to have limited scholarships and they're going to be on bowl bans and yada, yada. And, it's going to take a while for Tennessee to get back. And I'm not necessarily, jumping up and down and going to be cheering for Tennessee, but they're clearly going to be better than they were. Because I will say, as big of a dumpster fire as Tennessee is, if one man from that AD position can put them back to some prominence, not quite 1999 necessarily, because that's the problem with a lot of SEC teams. They kind of screenshot the heightened point of their success and think they're always going to be that way, whether it be boosters or fans or other people. But if anybody can get them anywhere near that level, it is Danny White. And I am interested to see who their next coach will be. If he's going to go for, a new hot coordinator, is he going to get an established coach from somewhere else, which for some reason that's the way fans are leaning towards, because they don't want the whole building system, but it's going to be built anyway. Because again, they're going to be on sanctions for at least a couple of years. And between the people that have transferred out and the people that have decommitted, it's going to be a rough couple of years up there. And I don't know that the fans quite understand that yet. And I hope they don't just hang that on Danny White immediately when they're not, challenging for an SEC championship within 2 years. Hopefully that's not something they put on him, because if anything, he's the only ticket they have to getting anywhere near that. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Danny White, for everything you've done for this school. And, even though you leaving came at kind of a surprise, I think you did it the right way to an extent, more so than the other person mentioned recently. And I don't necessarily cheer for Tennessee, but I hope this decision you made ends up being everything you want out of it, because you, the ambitious person that you are, chose a good one. And if you want to prove how good you are to rebuild a program, this is a ground zero program at this point. So we'll see if it works out. For the most part, we hope it does for your account. And schedule a home and home with us. I mean, you've been trying to do that for so long, and now you're in charge, even if it's in these early years when they don't have much to play for anyway. UCF Tennessee, let's get it done. But thank you, Danny, and to everyone listening. Check out Rob Dieters, Nick Rice, and myself, our reactions of the AFC and NFC Championship game. Enjoy. It is 10:07 p.m. on the East Coast after Conference Championship weekend. I'm here with my guys, Nick and Rob, and I think we all know why we're here. We got a lot of stuff to discuss. Top of the news, the Magic drop a heartbreaker to the Hornets. No, I'm just kidding. The Super Bowl was set, Bucs and Chiefs, and we're obviously going to break down both games. One game had a lot more to talk about than the other. So I'm going to go ahead and first question, we'll go with Rob. How many Tom Brady jerseys do you own? Because this is the second one in as many weeks I've seen you wear.
So first, I got to mention Tom Brady went to my high school in Nipro. Nipro Serra High School. Once a Padre, always a Padre. He did shout out San Mateo last time he played, but I own 2 jerseys to be exact. But Tom Brady is now going to his 10th Super Bowl, and I am excited. Will he go 7 for 10? I don't know, but I'm so excited that Tom Brady is going back once again. He proved me wrong, and I'm 0-2 in predictions, but I do have 2 Tom Brady jerseys.
By the way, before we get anywhere farther, unfortunately, Tom Brady chose the wrong Big Ten school, but I think it all worked out in the end.
I was going to say, talk about Big Ten schools. You need to find his Michigan jersey. That way you can complete the trifecta,
They actually sell the Sarah jersey, and they do sell a Michigan jersey. I do got to find that, though. If I ever do, I'll let you guys know.
There you go. I'm surprised you don't have them up on your wall there behind you.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I got to add back here to, actually get it going and get some sports memorabilia behind me.
Yeah, as you can see, I've kind of gone overboard with that, but maybe I'll find a happy medium at some point. So
I found that. Does that work?
well, you had your other stuff, but this is just better lighting for you, so you flipped back around anyway.
For sure,
But we didn't necessarily plan to do this. We all happen to be free, so I appreciate you guys taking the time on short notice to do this. We're not doing Super Bowl predictions or anything. That'll be the next episode. Give us time to do some research. But the early game, I think we should just jump right into it. The Bucs beat the Packers 31-26. As Rob already mentioned, Tom Brady is going to his 10th Super Bowl, the first one with the Tampa Bay Bucs. As you might see if you're watching the YouTube version, I, an Eagles fan, am wearing a Tampa Bay Buccaneers jersey. As a Floridian, I am 90% proud of this. The 10% is number 12 that I'm not proud of, obviously. But, I put a lot of tweets out as the game was going that were pretty pro-Packer, I guess you could say, and I want to make this known. My best friend since middle school is a Bucs fan. Shout out to Jeremy. He's very happy tonight. My sister and brother-in-law are Packers fans, so I had it coming from both sides. So I kind of had to, view this game from both sides. And the Bucs winning, I'm happy for them. Obviously, first time since 2002, they're going back to the Super Bowl. And for the first time in my knowledge, someone can correct me in the comments. The city of Tampa has a very interesting situation where 3 of their teams in a 12-month span are going to their championship game. Between the Lightning winning the Stanley Cup, the Rays going to the World Series, and now the Bucs going to the Super Bowl. More history being made. They will host said game, and for the first time in the NFL's history, a Super Bowl will be the team playing in it. It'll be their host city. So a lot of history being made tonight with the Bucs beating the Packers. But some controversy, of course, in this game. Nick, we'll start with you. Brady, I feel, was dying to give this game away at one point, and the Bucs defense, the young, hungry defense that they are, their nickname apparently is the Gravediggers, and they would not let Tom Brady give this game to the Packers. There was a situation there where, he wanted to gift wrap it for him, and it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Before I get to that, it's got to feel pretty weird and almost conflicting to you, Phil, that back in 2002, there must have been a whole lot of conflict about that NFC Championship game and how that went, and then the same situation today.
I think I've told this story before. I don't know for sure, so I'll do the quick version. In 2002, I'm in like 5th grade, I'd say it is. I show my age a little bit. And I'm really getting into football, and I'm just kind of watching, absorbing everything. And I start watching, I'm watching the Bucs because they're on TV because they're very good and we're here in Florida. And I love watching the Eagles. I like watching Brian Dawkins, suplex people off the field. As the big wrestling fan that I am, I gravitated towards him immediately. And I kind of watched both. And I kind of, my first 2 jerseys were a Brad Johnson Bucs jersey and a Javon Curse Eagles jersey I got for Christmas that year. And they were kind of both my teams. And I didn't know which one, if I had to pick one, which one I was going to go with. And the reason I knew I was an Eagles fan is when that NFC Championship rolled around and Rondé Barber picked off Donovan McNabb and ran into the end zone to retire the vet, I wasn't jumping up and down like everybody else at the party. So I knew that I must be more of an Eagles fan than a Bucs fan, or I'd be a lot more happier right now. So the Bucs have always been my number 2 when it comes to, when the Jags were doing good with my boy Blake Bortles, I was good with that. Don't have a lot of connection to the Dolphins, but, I can still cheer for Florida teams once my Eagles are out of it. So they've always, been my number 2. And the proof of this is we'll mention what this jersey is later, but I got a number 83 Bucs jersey. And if you can't tell who this is and you call yourself a Bucs fan, you're not a Bucs fan. Sorry to tell you.
That's right.
So
that is a fascinating story. I figured out my fandom of the Chargers a little before the 4th quarter of the AFC Championship game, the first year I watched. So we all have our process. Anyways, to get to this one tonight, this was an incredible game. It was what we expected for about a quarter and a half when I saw Valdez-Scantling score, and then Leonard Fournette out of that awesome run. It was 7-7, and it was a good game in the first quarter and a half. And the Bucs explode, and it felt like such a massive lead when Miller caught that touchdown to end the half that Aaron Rodgers and company wouldn't be able to make up that deficit. It's just too big, and that Bucs defense is awesome. And they basically made up the whole deficit in like a 10-minute stretch in the 3rd quarter. And to me, the turning point and the difference in the game was right there. They had the Bucs down, or they were down 5, but they had them right there, right on the ropes. And Brady, during that stretch, after the game was within 5, he throws back-to-back picks, And on those ensuing Packer drives, Green Bay does nothing. And to me, that was the game. I know we're going to talk about that fourth down decision to kick a field goal. And that was, in my opinion, it was pretty egregious. I could understand why they went with it, but still, I just felt you can't, with Aaron Rodgers, kick a field goal. But the game was when they were down 5, and 2 times in a row, they couldn't do anything on offense. I think that was the game right there.
Yeah, I kind of want to do this in halves because it really was a tale of two halves. So, you know, Rob, we'll go ahead and start with you. That first half, you know, that play at the end of the first half, Scotty Miller catching the touchdown, the Hail Mary that wasn't really a Hail Mary, so the Packers didn't really play it in prevent. You know, someone was able to get behind them. And a lot of people are probably saying, like, oh, the Packers are done. And, like, I understand, like, the Bucs have a lead going in half, but I'm sitting there like, you guys have seen Aaron Rodgers play football before, right? Like, this is no reason to count him out necessarily. I don't mean it was a guarantee, but, like, what did you think in the first half? You know, a lot of people thought it was done. I didn't necessarily think it, you know, was done and over with, but, you know, that play at the end was definitely a punch in the mouth when Scotty Miller caught that touchdown at the end of the half.
I think we've seen a lot of great Scotty Miller highlights this season on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A lot of people really don't really count him out on that offense because they look at Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Gronk, Cameron Brate, Fournette, and then Scotty Miller comes into the picture and makes a big time play at the end of the half. I think the Packers just defensive wise, they didn't think Brady was just gonna chuck one up and see what happens. But Brady got a big time break by the Packers defense, just letting that one go, and Scotty Miller getting a touchdown to make that lead 21-10. I have to give credit to the offense for Tampa Bay in that first half. Looked really good. Tom Brady wasn't making too many mistakes. And then, you know, second half is just a different story in its own. But Tampa Bay was just looking really good early on. And me having a prediction for the Packers winning this game, I already was having second thoughts.
I mean, I also picked the Packers, and I think Nick will have our standings here. We'll do it probably at the end of this. We'll do it at the very end. We'll do the final standings. But yeah, I realized they were down. I had picked the Packers as well. I didn't think they were out of it necessarily, but yeah, not an ideal start for the Packers. And Scotty Miller, like you said, we've seen him really come alive this whole season. You know, the Bucs last year, their starting slot receiver was Adam Humphries, who has since made a home for the Tennessee Titans. And I remember thinking, you know, Brady loves his slot quick guys, and he would make a Pro Bowler out of Adam Humphries if he was still there. Well, even though he's not there, he made his own Adam Humphries out of Scotty Miller, who obviously answered the call. Great for him and everything. And he, you know, if someone's going to catch a pass, you know, a deep pass at the end of a half for the Bucs, you think it'd be Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. Obviously, Antonio Brown didn't play, might have shown some sort of a factor, but for him to be the one to do it, that's how you know everything is going great for the Bucs. And we get to the second half, and we were texting a little bit back and forth, the three of us, and those interceptions that Brady threw, those guys, it was like fielding a pop-up fly in the outfield. Like, this was not, you know, the pick that Rodgers threw, which we'll get to, whether it should have been PI or not. You know, that was a normal football play, but these two that Brady threw, he threw 3, but the 2 back-to-back that Nick already talked about were absolute ducks. And the fact that the Packers got no points off of that, I know it's so easy to give Brady all the credit for this, but that defense is the reason they're going to the Super Bowl based on the way that second half played out.
Yeah, you know, when they played the Saints as tough as they did, forcing the turnovers, that's why I said, even with Aaron Rodgers, I've made the comment before, 18-point lead, this defense is really, really good. And that's why before the season, I felt Tampa really had a good chance because of just the embarrassment of talent they had on defense. Now, I felt offensively they had an embarrassment of riches. I don't think it's quite played out that way. I thought Gronk would be better than he has this year. Leonard Fournette's been awesome. I think I brought it up our first show. Like, how is this guy on the free agent market? Like, how in the world is he not, you know, a 4 or 5 year deal type of guy? He is a really good running back. And I think in that first half, we saw it with his touchdown run.
Well, he had that deal with the Jags, and something soured real quick. He had an extension. He was that 4 or 5 year deal guy with the Jags, and for whatever reason, it soured. Cleared waivers, which is, you know, a whole nother question mark. I don't know that we're ever going to truly know what happened there with Fournette and the Jaguars, but, you know, he hopped on 95, went south, you know, hit 50, went west a little bit, and he found his new home in the same state. And, it's worked out great for him. He's been spotty. I think this was a great game for him his big thing is for some reason it matters to him if he's the starting guy. Like, Ronald Jones can get going whether he's the change of pace back or not. Fournette, for whatever reason, when he starts, there's a big difference in his production when he's the starter or if he's the guy that comes in later. So starting him, letting him get hot early seemed to be the difference for him in that great, touchdown run that he had for sure. The real story of this game, the one that's going to live on, this was not Rams Saints bad as far as, egregious calls, but I'd put it in the ballpark because the way I've always felt, I don't like talking about holding. I'll never talk about holding on this show. There's holding on every play. You've heard it, yada, yada. I used to play center. Trust me, we hold every play. It happens, okay? So I don't talk about holding because you can, screenshot any play and there is holding. But the pass interference calls in this game, my problem isn't when you call them or when you don't call them. It's to be consistent. And we're going to debut a new feature here. We have figured out screen share, so bear with me here for a second. This is the one that everybody's talking about, right? This is the fourth quarter. This is the play that if the Packers make the stop, even after the field goal, which we'll get to, they're going to, get the ball back and they're down, 5 or whatever it is. And basically, if they score a touchdown, they can win this game. And nobody is going to argue after we've looked at this a second time that this is, in fact, holding, right? He's holding his T-shirt, which, total side note, I don't know why guys are wearing these super stretchy Under Armour T-shirts under their jerseys nowadays. You see it all the time. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But so nobody's going to not call this holding, right? But if you're going to call this holding, my question is, oh, look at that. Circle worked out the same way. If you are holding a guy's jersey into his shoulder pads, and this was actually the play that became an interception for Rodgers, how is this also not pass interference? If you're going to no call both of them and you tell me, all right, it's playoff football, we're going to let you play, I got no problem with that. If you're going to call both of these pass interference, I also have no problem with that. But you can't not call this and then call this. It's both or nothing, in my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel, but that's the way I look at that. You have to be consistent in your calls. You can be super touchy or you can let them play, but you got to be consistent. That's my only issue with this whole game.
Robert, you want to take that?
Yes, I'll take it. With pass
right.
interference, I feel like we throw this penalty around so much in the NFL, and do we really know what PI really is? I really want to go down to the rule book and look. I honestly want to just go through every pass interference call all season long and just see what differences there are in different types of pass interference calls. I mean, I don't know if as Phil said, they wear those long Under Armour shirts, and we see a lot of those guys grabbing onto those. I don't think they mean to necessarily. It just kind of hooks onto the player's hands, and then it's called pass interference. But I think he let go at a good time. But I don't know. It's a tough call. I feel like I still don't really know the true definition of pass interference in the NFL, but it's costly, and it costs the game for certain teams. You saw what happened Green Bay tonight. That call might have cost them the game.
I mean, I think that the other part, which I'll let you guys take the floor on this, is a lot of people are wondering, if, why did they kick the field goal? Why didn't they let Rodgers, go for it on fourth down to get the touchdown? That's a totally valid point, and I understand you both are on, I'm pretty sure, on that side of the fence here. But they kicked the field goal, and if that doesn't get called pass interference, they're getting the ball back. So kicking the field goal would have, that line of thinking still would have worked fine. So I understand because you're down 8. So if you go, you can go for 2. If you get it, it's a tie game. If you don't, at least a field goal wins it for you. I totally see the argument for the other way. But if this doesn't get called, we're not talking about the field goal because they're in a position to win it if they get the ball back. And either he gets it, they fumble, interception, whatever happens after that. But you're in a position to win the game, and you can't argue that. So I think this is a bigger story than the field goal. But a lot of people are still talking about the field goal. So I do understand that.
You're the first person, Twitter went wild. You're the first person who thought of it, in my opinion, from that perspective, where it all could end up working out, because all I heard was the narrative that I think is correct. It's you have Aaron Rodgers on a goal to go, and you could argue he should have ran it on second or third down or whatever. And there certainly is a good argument. To me, I think when you brought up those pictures, by the way, great job by you, Phil. The pass interference they called, it looks a little bit worse because of the shirt,
Yes.
but it's both the same thing. It slowed down the receiver who's clearly beating the defender. And I think the other thing that almost makes the no call more of a pass interference than the second one. Like if I were to throw a flag on one of them, I would have thrown it on the first one, not the second one, because I feel the second one was more of an uncatchable football. I felt the first one was much more catchable. Like the second one, I don't think people saw this, but the ball floated pretty far over his head. That was just another Brady pass in the second half that for some reason was like 5 yards too high. But yeah, it was to me about the same, but I'd say the first one was even more PI than the second one.
I agree. And Rob, right before we get you in here, that play, I agree. I think it was over his head. And I don't play a lot of Call of Duty, but the dolphin dive that ensued afterwards, I think is really what, if he just kind of stumbles and finishes his route. I mean, that was one of the latest flags I've ever seen too. Like there was a beat, there was a 2 beats maybe where they think, oh, they stopped them. The Packers get, oh no, there's the flag. Like the announcers, you could tell were waiting to see, and they were kind of walking on eggshells or whatever. And another thing I want to mention with the field goal situation, on second and third down, we're going to do one more screen share here because I happen to find it. This is the third down play, I think. The fact that Rodgers doesn't take off here, I'm not saying it's a guaranteed score, but I'm saying he's a lot closer, and the fourth down decision becomes a lot clearer. The second,
by the way, look at that. Look at Aaron Rodgers' numbers, man. That's insane.
Yeah. And I know this isn't the greatest quality picture, but it still shows off, the concept we're working with here. The second down play was very similar. I think there was more guys in the way over here, but the fact that, I'm not saying he's going to score, but if that fourth down is a 4th and 1 or 2 instead of a 7 or an 8, maybe the field goal isn't the call. So that's something else that could have affected it. So go ahead, Rob. How do you feel on that?
Good job, Phil. That was great. That's screenshot work.
Phil, Packers have gone to 2 straight NFC Championship games. We've seen them lose 2 times in a row. We've seen them blow so many playoff chances since they have had the opportunities to go to the Super Bowl, and they don't take the risk to get there.
Yeah.
They make mistakes in big-time situations and big-time games. Aaron Rodgers is a great regular season quarterback. Let's not forget that. This man was MVP this season. And I'm thinking if you have an MVP quarterback who can convert and go for that big time play to get the touchdown and get that 2-point conversion, you do it.
Yeah.
You don't stumble about it. You don't think about it. You do it. Mike McCarthy's gone for a reason. Are we not wrong here? That's
exactly where I was going to go with this. If this play would have happened last year, I mean, they called for McCarthy's head anyway, but everyone's like, oh, he won't go for it. I don't know that LaFleur's name has been mentioned in this quite yet, but you would think that this is a McCarthy move that's happening here. So, like, I agree that if I got Aaron Rodgers, I'm feeling comfortable about it. I see the situation where, look, they got the field goal. If they get that stop, they're right where they need to be. But, yeah, you got Aaron Rodgers. You went to, I mentioned this earlier, my brother-in-law and sister are Packers fans. And, since winning the Super Bowl in 2010, Aaron Rodgers has lost 4 conference championship games. And when my brother-in-law was telling me this, I'm like, well, try being an Eagles fan and losing 4 of them or 3 of them straight at home. All right. So this is the first one that Rodgers lost at home. I'm sure that stings a little extra too. But to lose 3 in a row, you finally win the 4th one. You lose to the Super Bowl to Tom Brady and some video cameras. It's not a good time. All right. But this is equally painful situation. And Rodgers, there's a lot of quotes, from last year when they lost, and I forget who he was talking on the bench. He's like, man, we need this game at home. That's going to be the difference. We got to play the conference championship in Green Bay, in Lambeau, in December, January. You got it. You were there, and it didn't happen. Granted, I don't want to bring this up because this is a situation for everybody, but would a packed Lambeau Field crowd make a difference? Is it worth a couple points? Probably, but you can't play that game because everybody's dealing with this COVID shit. So I can't even put that on them.
And they had, about as many fans as any game has had all year. So.
I'll say this. Supposedly there was 9,000 fans there. It came in great on TV. So Packer Nation showed out. The 9,000 that were there sounded like 30,000 in my opinion. So good on them.
I just look at this game and I'm thinking, what if they went for it? I mean, Devontae. So one thing I did talk about in the predictions, if the Packers were to win, Devontae Adams had to be very on point. Targeted 15 times, got 9 catches, 67 yards, made it in the end zone. But did Rodgers rely on Devontae Adams just a little too much? And that's where my kind of head's at, because this is his only big guy. Yeah, Robert Tonyan was like maybe a big factor for a couple weeks here or there. Valdez Scouting, I forget which game, but he made a big time mistake. I believe, I think he either dropped a big time pass or like bobbled a ball, but Rodgers had a chance to win one of those losses he had, and Valdez Scouting was one of the big reasons why they lost that game. I mean, shout out to him. He had 4 catches, 115 yards, and got the touchdown. But I think Devontae Adams just, I think he got stopped a little bit, a little stumped. He still got the 9 catches, giving him the props there. But I think Green Bay has relied on Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams connection a little too much. And they saw Jones. Aaron, we didn't talk about this, but Jones went down with an injury.
Yep.
So they had to go with Williams and Dillon. They weren't doing much. They didn't do as well as they thought they would, and I don't think you're going to trust them in the end zone or trying to make that run into the end zone. So you're going to have to rely on Rodgers. And the Packers, man, you want to believe this team's going to make it to the Super Bowl again. But I don't know after this season. I mean, I look at this game and I look at last season. The 49ers know how to play against the Packers. It's kind of crazy to me. 49ers know how to beat the Packers in big time games. It's kind of like when the Packers and Seattle Seahawks go at it.
Yeah.
Seattle knows how to beat the Packers in big time situations.
Mm-hmm.
Brady came into the NFC and now he's got the ticket back in the Super Bowl with a whole different team. It's crazy to see how Tom Brady can make such a big impact, even though he threw 3 interceptions and that defense did keep him in the game somehow. But you would believe when you have an MVP quarterback, this is Aaron Rodgers, one of his best seasons, and talking about his future, he answered he didn't know because they drafted a backup and replacement in the first round with Jordan Love out of Utah State. How is Rodgers feeling right now? Like, is he feeling like, man, maybe I only have a season and 2 left, and if I don't go and get a Super Bowl in like next year, are they just gonna be like, well, we might as well just throw Jordan Love into the mix? But he also just had an MVP season. This is where I'm confused with Green Bay's future if they can't win big time games and cannot make it. I guess they can make a decision by going for the field goal, but they can't make that risk to put them to tie that game at least. I mean, yeah, maybe the Buccaneers would have won, but they could have tied the game and we could have seen overtime.
Yeah.
It just frustrates me to see Aaron Rodgers fail so many times and just can't get there, man. Just can't get to the Super Bowl.
Oh my goodness. Hold on, let me say this real quick. I know
Sure.
I know we're a little short on time. Last year, I know, or 2 years ago, whatever it was, when pass interference was reviewable for a year, and that proved to not work, not because it's not a great idea, but it just seemed like the officials were dead set on whatever call they had on the field, right or wrong, they were going to stick with it. I thought that was, if they did it the way they're supposed to, I think that's the solution to this problem. But unfortunately, they proved that they're not willing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, the Seahawks know how to go in there and beat the Packers. The 49ers know how to go and beat the Packers. Earlier on, it was the Giants. They knew how to go into Lambeau and beat the Packers. It reminds me of, to switch sports, it reminds me of Patrick Ewing back in the day, which, while we're talking basketball, shout out to the West Coast Heat Check, a new basketball podcast hosted by these guys and Stephen Hughes, right? Is that your third man?
Yeah.
Right? Good guy there also. Check that out on YouTube. But Patrick Ewing was a guy that was never worried about getting dunked on. Any good player in the 90s has a poster dunking on Patrick Ewing because he did not mind getting in there. All these good NFC teams have a signature win on the Packers because they're always in the way and they don't back down, but they always lose. So it does happen to be that way. But as far as it goes right now, Tampa Bay's in the Super Bowl and the Packers have a lot to figure out. They're right where they were last year, even with the Jordan Love situation didn't become a huge controversy like we thought it was going to be. We are running out of time. Luckily, the second game here, not as much to talk about here in the AFC. The Chiefs prevail over the Buffalo Bills. A hell of a run for the Buffalo Bills. I want to start there. little banged up, had a couple guys not out. Gabe Davis was a game time decision who really came alive in these playoffs, really only had a couple targets at the end of the game when they were already behind. The Bills for a minute at the beginning, they had a fumble. The Chiefs had a fumble on a punt return. It looks like the Bills go up. It's going to be 10-0. Scratch that. It's 9-0. The extra point goes off the upright. And in a normal situation, you're like, all right, they got the punch on them, but we've seen the Chiefs too many times, 24-0, 21-0, 9-0 scares nobody. They were the better team. There's after all the hustle and bustle of the NFC Championship, this game was very paint by numbers. The Chiefs, as I've mentioned on this show, have sleptwalked through a lot of the season. I don't know that they were fully asleep, but they definitely woke up a little bit. We saw a lot more here. The running game was consistent. Tyreek Hill in his touches, made it all count and everything. The Chiefs, 3 straight championship games, 2 wins, back to the Super Bowl, looking for a back-to-back. So that'll be interesting. I don't know if you guys have other notes on this game, but hell of a game for Buffalo. It looks like they're just about there. I think, they might be a piece or two away, but if the Chiefs are the only people that can beat them, they're in a good spot for the next few years.
Yeah, I guess just real quick, this was a commentary we had before the game, just how good some of the targets Mahomes has thrown to him. And I was thinking as well, talking to you guys, like, is Kelsey the best tight end of the game? I think he is. It's certainly a conversation with him and Kittle. Yeah. He set a record, the first tight end ever to have a 13-catch, 100-yard, multi-touchdown game. I know that's a lot of numbers. First guy ever to do that in a playoff game. And Tyreek Hill, is he the best wide receiver in the game? And thinking about the best wide out, DeVante Adams might be on that list and a couple of other guys. I know I'm missing a guy or two, but Tyreek Hill's right there. It's insane that just somehow, and I'm a Charger guy, so there's a little pain in my heart when I say this, that the Chiefs managed to grab maybe the best quarterback, tight end, and receiver in the game today, all on one team. It's crazy to think that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just scouting in general. I mean, the Chiefs did their homework and they got the job done. Shout out to the Bills. They're improving every season, and I think Buffalo proved a lot this postseason. The one big question mark for Buffalo right now, the running game. Singletary, Yeldon, Moss is supposed to be coming back, assumingly for next season. He's just been injured, but they got to figure out that running game. They got to figure out how to make that efficient. I think Josh Allen had to throw so much, and they have to rely on a passing type of offense right now, and they're not running the football very well. But Bills, you're almost there. You're almost there, but man, you guys got your first wins in the postseason since the mid-1990s. Give them a huge shout out. With the Chiefs physically dominate offensively. I mean, their defense does not have to be the game. Doesn't have to be the factor in any games. It's that offense that keeps it going. Mahomes played fantastic. They relied on Darrell Williams. Edwards-Helaire did play a little bit here and there, but I guess they're stepping away a little bit from Edwards-Helaire. They're going towards Darrell Williams in the playoffs, and you saw a lot of him. He had 13 carries tonight. Hill and Travis Kelce, they're the first duo to have over 100 yards receiving together. And then the last time that happened with the Chiefs was 50 years ago.
Oh.
So interesting fact there I learned tonight. And, man, Tyreek Hill, just put him at running back, dude. Might as well, right? He looked phenomenal. He gets off, like, so quickly off the corners, man. Like, I don't know which corners could even keep up with Tyreek Hill. Like, it's scary to think how fast this man really is.
You mentioned Williams maybe really being the guy for the Chiefs. People forget, just because the way the game played out, he scored a late touchdown in the Super Bowl that they had already given Mahomes the MVP. If that touchdown happens a little earlier, sometimes in the Super Bowl, a random guy just wins the MVP. He had a good case for it. It could have easily been him. It's just that the award had already been announced when he iced the game with the late touchdown. But you mentioned the Buffalo running attack. Josh Allen, 88 yards. The next best guy, Singletary, 17. So clearly they're banged up at the running back position. Definitely could have been the difference. But again, hell of a run for Buffalo. They're going to be the beast in the East in the AFC for a while to come here. And I'm here for it. They have, some of the greatest fans in the NFL. I say that as an Eagles fan. We tip our cap to the Bills Mafia. Those guys are freaking crazy, jumping through tables and shit. I love it. I can't get enough of those videos. Yeah, so I hope they're great for a long time. Nick, as we get out of here, I think you have our updated picks, playoff pick numbers. If you want to shout those out to us on the. Yep, go ahead.
I appreciate you going to me for it. I'm not the guy to gloat. I would never do such a thing. But I've only been basically perfect this entire playoff run. On our shows, I'm undefeated, but I count a loss because I switched my mind midweek. I am 11-1 in playoff predictions. That guy right there finishing off his beverage, 8-4, not half bad. And Robert Dieters, right down to the final game on the wire to avoid last place, is 7-5. Not
so
bad.
Overall, I will say as we close up, all winning records. So good job for everybody. Nick 11-1, nearly perfect, similar to Brady and Moss and the Patriots back in the day, except he won when it mattered, which is the difference maker. Guys, we're out of time. I want to thank you guys for jumping on here last second. A lot of good stuff here. And we'll be back next week with our Super Bowl predictions. So thank you all for listening to Phil Talk Sports, and we'll see you next time.